Good morning. Welcome to ERTMS 2024. Welcome all participants here in Valenciennes, and welcome to all participants online. I am Josef Doppelbauer, the Executive Director of the European Union Agency for Railways, and together with Christian Schmidt, Director Land Transport in DG Move in the European Commission, I will have the pleasure of opening this conference. Now, from stage, what an impressive view. According to our registration, we should have 580 people here. I believe some are still queuing and trying to find their seat. We always say that Valenciennes is the rail capital of Europe. Today, I believe it is true to say that Valenciennes is the ERTMS capital of the world. We have certainly today the biggest ERTMS event ever. 120 online, 580 here, so in total around 700 participants. We have counted the registrations yesterday. On site, here in the room, we should have representatives from 22 member states of the European Union and 6 non-EU countries. Of course, we have our friends from Switzerland, Norway, the United Kingdom, but we have also participants from Turkey and even from Canada. They took the long trip here to Valenciennes. Online, we have 27 countries represented. We have representatives of the candidate countries, Georgia and Ukraine, and we even have people registered and people watching us from Singapore and Japan. So ERTMS is an important aspect for the whole world, and we can see it today. Before we go to the substance of our conference, a few practical information. On your badge, you have a QR code. If you want to ask any question and you don't want to take the floor officially, you can use Slido on your mobile, scan the QR code. Then, just to inform you, just before lunch, we will take a family picture. The family picture will be taken at the usual place downstairs. So when you walk to lunch, please make a stop for the family picture. We will have, after the hard work during the conference, a networking cocktail at 1900 hours. Just to let you know, there will be buses until 10 p.m., buses to Valenciennes and to La Petite Forêt. Final reminder, tomorrow afternoon there will be technical visits to Multitel and to Infrabel. You have on your badge the respective technical visit. Those who have registered will know on which technical visit they are. And last but not least, just an announcement, and you can see it also from my notes. Tomorrow we will celebrate the 20th birthday of ERA.
Yep.
The European Union Agency for Railways was officially born on the 1st of May 2004, so we celebrate the 20 years. Now, coming to the substance, and as this is more official, I will go to the lectern, as it is in English. I'm so used to French that I wanted to say pupitre, but so, and let's see whether this works.
Wonderful.
The motto of this year's ERTMS conference is ERTMS, make it happen. Make it happen to shape the future of European railways. We need ERTMS. We need ERTMS to create the single European railway area, and we need ERTMS to increase the modal share of rail. And of course, we have several important reasons why we need ERTMS. The first major reason to have ERTMS deployed is to improve the operation of cross-border train services in Europe. Improve operation by deploying a single standardized European control, command and signaling system. This single European system will provide operational simplification. It should reduce cost and complexity, and of course, it should also give more flexibility to railway undertakings and infrastructure managers, because we have no vendor lock-in anymore. One of the main advantages of ERTMS is, of course, also that it will improve safety. In Europe, unfortunately, we still have many railway lines that are not fitted or are fitted with non-Seal 4 systems. Fitting lines with ERTMS will help to reduce safety risks. Then, an additional advantage is we get more train capacity. There are some applications currently developed in Europe. I'm thinking of, for instance, Germany, Digitaler Knoten Stuttgart, where ERTMS is essential to get the capacity that is needed. Then, ERTMS will, of course, also increase the operational reliability. Firstly, because ERTMS is a more modern system, and secondly, we will have ETCS with less equipment in the track because we no longer need wayside signals. ETCS is, of course, also the basis for digitalization and automation. Now, you might have seen from the program that the conference will mostly focus on the deployment of ERTMS. We will present to you projects across Europe. We will highlight the lessons learned from successful implementation. We will present to you the state of play of deployment and the future perspective. We will also, and this is a key topic certainly of our conference, explore the migration and implementation strategies for the future Railway Mobile Communication System, FRMCS. Therefore, not surprisingly, our conference will start with the ERTMS status and outlook in session 1, moderated by Keir Fitch from the European Commission. This session 1 will start right after the opening, and in this session there will be keynotes from our ERTMS coordinator, Matthias Rüte, and from Christian Schmidt from DG Move. Then we will have opportunity in this conference to also address challenges. Yesterday, I was very impressed by the workshops. These workshops were a very, very important opportunity to exchange views. One of the issues that I saw in the various workshops I participated is we still need to work on the European mindset. We still have sometimes a two-national viewpoint. Then, of course, we have technical and operational challenges. One challenge clearly is economy. We have to address the total cost of ownership issue. And finally, ERTMS needs skilled human resources. And as we have heard in numerous occasions yesterday, the available human resources are a problem, and this problem needs to be addressed. As I said before, A European mindset is the basis for the single European railway area, and the single European railway area is the basis for the modal shift to rail. ERTMS deployment needs a solid legal basis. Later this morning, I will have the pleasure of moderating the second session, which will cover essentially the new 2023 TSI CCS. Also, in relation to the system pillar, we will discuss the future and have a presentation on the standardization and TSI input plan, and we will certainly cover the FRMCS specification. Now, after this broad outlook on the conference, I hand over to Christian, and Christian will give us some motivational words to really warm us up for the conference. Christian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joseph. Round of applause. Thanks a lot, Joseph, and it's a great honor to once again open this conference with you on the stage. I can see it just keeps growing. You asked me to say some motivational words, so I will argue with you this morning that this conference comes at a historic moment and a very important time for ERTMS, of course, for ERA also, the agency, for rail, and I would say for Europe. Now, you all know that ERTMS is an abbreviation that stands for European Rail Traffic Management System. But I made a small exercise here to find alternative words for this abbreviation. So ERTMS, excellent rail takes massive standardization. Try to remember that one. Or ERTMS, essential to rail to transition much sooner. But my preferred one is the last one, ERTMS, everything really turns much simpler. You can replace simpler by safer if you prefer. It also works. Now, our ambition for ERTMS should really be deployment, faster, united, harmonized, and global. And I took note of the global participation in the conference because we are here in the European setting, but we are setting a standard for the world. Secondly, this is also important for the agency, for ERA, not only because you have come of age, you have left the teenage years. Almost 20 years. And I think also thanks to the work of the agency, I sense a clear consensus in this room, and that is that the single European railway area, SARA for short, cannot and will not materialize organically from national networks or bodies. We need to accept that certain functions have to be centralized to achieve efficiencies. In a nutshell, no ERA, no SARA. Thirdly, it's an important moment for rail, because I know everyone in this room can feel the momentum for rail, but I hope you also sense the urgent need to seize the opportunity. Green winds are blowing through Europe. Decarbonization is a legal obligation, and it is an existential challenge to humankind. And we all know that rail is part of the solution. It is the backbone of mobility. If we have the courage to take the necessary decisions together to unleash its potential. I mean, the competitiveness and the ecological virtues that are derived from the physics of steel on steel, it simply cannot be beaten, or rather, it can only be beaten if it's held back by red tape, by railway nationalism, and by operators that are not listening to the needs of the markets and the customers. And fourthly, it is a moment in time that is very important to the European Union, and I stand here speaking on behalf of the European Commission, but for the EU as a whole, make no mistake, our union is being tested, and tested to the core first by Brexit, then by populism at home here, but also across the pond, tested by Corona, tested by volatile energy prices, tested by supply chain constraints, by global competition for critical raw materials, and tested by a war of aggression on our doorstep. And since you mentioned there are Ukrainian participants, Slava Ukraini, full solidarity from Brussels. And lastly, we must remember that our unity and our cohesion relies not only on treaties and directives and regulations, but also on real people-to-people encounters, whether it's through Erasmus, Interrail, cross-border journeys, discovering our European brothers and sisters, as we are now doing in this room. And also because our unity and our cohesion and our prosperity relies not only on a vibrant single market, but also the transport solutions, the resilient sector that is neither a hostage to fossil fuel hostile suppliers or non-EU manufacturers of electrified mobility. So transport is strategic and inherent and essential to EU unity. In a few weeks, we will go to the European elections. There will be a new European Parliament. There will be a new European Commission taking up its mandate. In short, this is a time that is very important. This conference is strategic, and you're all lucky to be here. But let's take this opportunity to send a positive and a confident message to the rest of the Union that rail is ready, and Europe's rail is united, and that we are part of the solution. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Christian, for your truly inspiring words. With that, ERTMS 2024 is officially opened. We had left some margin at the beginning because we were not sure about the traffic situation, and we were also not sure about the efficiency of our security. So everything has worked smoothly. If you agree, we make the transition right away to session 1. I invite Kier Fitch on stage, the moderator, and Christian, you may stay because you have one of the keynotes, and I hand over to Kier for introducing the first session of our conference.
Great.
Warm welcome, applause to Kier.
Thank you. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be with you this morning. I'm Kier Fitch, Head of Railway Safety and Interoperability in the European Commission's Transport Directorate General. Now, the first session this morning is to give you the overview, the status update on ERTMS. And of course, we all know that with many things in rail, certainly with ERTMS, it is the small technical difficulties that give us so much problems, so many challenges, and those, of course, are what you spent most of yesterday discussing, and what you will also be spending, or what we will be spending a lot of the rest of the conference discussing. But it isn't only those technical details which cause us issues. ERTMS, as we all know, is the key, the core of the European digital railway system that we're trying to create. And that will only be created if we all work together. So what we will bring together in this first panel are the key stakeholders. Some of my colleagues from the Commission, but also the senior representatives of the rail supply industry, of the railway undertakings and of the infrastructure managers. Because it is only by us all working together that we can actually deliver for Europe. And delivering means overcoming not only those technical issues that, of course, we're spending the rest of the conference looking at, but also overcoming the big picture economic issues, the political issues, to some extent the competition issues. So what I want with this first panel is to give you all a flavour of how those issues are proceeding, how we are working together to solve them, and how we will make the vision you've just heard from Christian Schmidt of the single European railway area actually work. So to help me give you this picture, I'm going to invite first onto the stage Matthias Rüther, Matthias has had many years of experience with ERTMS, in the past as our Director General in DG Move, but now as the European Commission's ERTMS coordinator. And in this role, he tours Europe, meeting all of these stakeholders, helping them to solve the difficulties on the ground. So he's the best placed person to tell you how deployment is going today and what we're going to do to speed it up. Matthias.
Thank you very much, Keir, and thank you very much, Joseph, for organizing this conference, and all the colleagues from ERA. It is now the third time I'm participating in this conference, and it is a great pleasure for me to see you all here. And over the years, we have had lots of exchanges, and if I may say so, we've become friends in adversity sometimes. Now, the last time round, I tried to give a score in as much as ERTMS deployment is concerned. I will not give a score today, but I will just say we could do better. Really, we could do better. If I look at the figures in terms of trackside deployment, we are now at something like 9,000 kilometers in terms of ETCS in the European Union. If I look at vehicles, these 9,000 kilometers have to be measured against what is in the ERTMS deployment plan, which foresees by 2023 that we have something like 15,000 kilometers equipped. So we are missing at least 6,000 kilometers, probably a little bit more. In as much as equipment of vehicles is concerned, we know that we have something like 9,000 vehicles authorized with ETCS equipment, different levels obviously. We know that we have something like another 14,000 in the pipeline, but we are talking about altogether something over 40,000 vehicles in the European Union. So again, we could do better on that. So that is my first message. We could do better. My second message is we are being watched. I, for some time, have now been saying that rail policy in general terms, but also ERTMS, should move up again on the political agenda. We were, to a certain extent, amongst cognoscenti, were obviously quite aware that we needed ERTMS and digitalization of rail to move ahead. But this was not in the general discourse, especially at the highest political level. We have now the chance that Enrico Letta, who prepared a paper for the European Council on the single market, not only a single market, not just the single market, actually has a strong push for the deployment of ERTMS in the European Union. The heads of state of government last week, actually in their conclusions, were identifying 10T policies and in that sense also the missing links and the bottlenecks and the upgrading of the framework as an important element in terms of future policy in terms of the single market. So we are being watched more closely by the political level than we were in the last few years. So again, we have to be quite aware that we are doing that we actually deliver. This week, we will have the European Parliament actually adopting the 10T regulation with deadlines. Deadlines for ERTMS deployment in as much as the core network, the extended core networks, and the comprehensive network is concerned. Deadlines for the phasing out of Class B systems. Deadlines for moving ahead in terms of a fully radio-based ERTMS. So we will have a legal framework in place. On that basis, we will now have a look at the national implementation plans, which have to be communicated by June of this year. And on that basis, I will be coming forward together with the Commission colleagues, obviously, in terms of a new and revised ERTMS deployment plan, probably in 2025, where we will be setting new deadlines and trying to agree amongst ourselves how to move ahead. In terms of how to move ahead, let me give you a few of my general basic messages that I've been trying to give over the last few years. First of all, do not think only corridor, but think network, in as much as ERTMS is concerned. We know that we have, to a certain extent, been at the beginning pushing ERTMS very much as under the heading interoperability. We now need to move ahead and think about it as a single European system. Not an overlay system any longer, but a system replacing national signaling systems. And I think this is generally agreed, and every time I say this now that everybody nods in that, but then goes away and does something specific in terms of national rules again. But I think we all agree we need a single European system, and this is where we have to move ahead. We also agree, and this is also in the 10T regulation, that we have to think track and cab together. We didn't do that at the very beginning, and I think we are paying a heavy price. And a number of infrastructure managers who are delaying also the closing down of Class B systems can sing a story about that, that in general terms, we have to think track and cab together. We all agree also that we have to standardize, harmonize, and move to a single European system. And we have the institutional elements in place with the systems pillar, with ERA, with the TSIs, all the things that we have been putting into place in the last few years, that we move towards a standardized, harmonized, single European system. One point, and I'm quite sure that my friend and colleague Alberto will be talking much more about that, is we need a stronger European governance. I think on the European Union level, we can show that we will be delivering some of that. Some of it will be delivered through the new 10T regulation, where we will be having a kind of forum of national ERTMS coordinators, which will be talking to one another. We have a strong push again to have a pillar where the stakeholders come together and actually get involved in terms of defining our objectives. And obviously at the EU level, we also have to have a much more joined up operation in terms of Commission, SINIA, EU Rail, ERA, and we're working on that as well. The next few years will be extremely important, and because of that, the letter report is very important. And obviously the Draghi report, which will be coming, will be very important in terms of mobilizing European finance for ERTMS. Some member states have actually used the chance of the Recovery and Resilience Facility in terms of mobilizing additional European finance. The letter report talks about also much more private investors. We'll have to see with the European Investment Bank how we mobilize them in terms of investment. But also yesterday in the workshops already, it became very clear that without stable, predictable finance, a lot of the things that we think are important to happen will not happen. And because of that, I think we all have to work together in the next few months and years in terms of making sure that the next multi-annual financial framework also envisages sufficient funds for us. Last but not least, in terms of messages that I've been giving for a long time, and we will be discussing FRMCS the next 2 days, we need a predictable and better transition management. We already have dates in terms of the TSIs, in terms of transition management, which allow railway undertakings to see what is coming next. But I think we need to talk a little bit more about how to organize better transition management. And this leads me to the things that I will only very quickly list, because I've already overspent my time in terms of talking to you. What do I think that we need in the next few weeks and months to do? First of all, we need to work really on the improvement of governance. We can perhaps also in the context of the panel discuss this a little bit more. Second, we need a thorough analysis of the cost drivers. If I believe some of the reports that I've been getting in the last few weeks in terms of cost drivers, retrofitting or upgrading in terms of vehicles has doubled the costs. This is not only the supply industry, this is also a lot of things that are actually happening on the level of the railway undertakings or on the level also of the administrations. We need to look at all the elements, whether it is the design phase, whether it's the deployment phase, whether it's the authorization phase, and identify what are the cost drivers and what are the low-hanging fruits where we can actually work on trying to reduce costs in terms of ERTMS deployments on board, and we will have to do the same thing on the track side as well. I think we also have to have some kind of coordination in as much as the phasing out of Class B systems is concerned. Not that we can substitute and have a European centralized plan in terms of shutting off Class B system, but I think we need better coordination on that. We've seen what happened in Luxembourg. We will, by 2025, end of 2025, have a situation where the Belgian network will only be accessible with ETCS equipment. We will have this all over Europe, happening all over Europe, and we will have to, I think, try and coordinate on that. Christian and Josef already mentioned, we need to tackle the human resources issue. Very clearly, we have too few engineers, too few technical staff, but we also have, in terms of European governance, my feeling is we have too little happening there. So we need to look at the human resources issue. I've already mentioned the ERTMS deployment plan, which needs to integrate not only deployment on the track side, but we need to find a way also of looking at the vehicles in the deployment plan. We need to look at how, in terms of phasing out of Class B system, how to do that. This will be a debate which we will be having in the next few months and well, actually only months. And then last but not least, we need to make sure that the FRMCS rollout is managed in a way that all stakeholders can actually work with it. And at the moment, I get too many messages in terms of worry, in terms of saying, well, at the moment, I cannot equip my locomotives because I cannot retrofit or upgrade them because I don't know what's around the corner. And we'll be discussing this, I think, also very clearly in the next few hours and the next 2 days here, hopefully coming with a solution which is workable for all. So these are just a few points that I wanted to make in terms of the agenda for the next few months. Normally I'm much more upbeat. You've heard me more skeptical at the moment, but my major message is that in reality, yes, we are being watched on the political level, but yes, we also have the push from the political level, and we have now to respond to this push in order to show that we can deliver a single European system which allows us to move ahead and make rail the part of the mobility in Europe that we all wanted to have. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Matthias. So if you'd like to join me sitting here. And of course, I remind everybody, we hope we'll have plenty of time for questions. Since we started this session actually a little bit early, I'm sure we should have, so please make sure you're sending them into Slido, and then we will pick them up at the end of the session, particularly to talk about some of these issues surrounding the coordination of the rollout of ERTMS that Matthias has mentioned, that I'm sure Alberto will also be picking up later in this session. But now can I invite Christian Schmidt back to the stage again. Christian, as you know, is the Director of Land Transport in DG Move, and he will elaborate further on the importance of ERTMS as the centerpiece of the digital railway, which of course is the key to the efficient, flexible, adaptable railway of the future. Christian.
Thanks a lot, Keir. Well, normally Matthias is giving me the positivity boost, and then I can be blunt as a Dane. But now I don't know what to do, Matthias, because you were a little bit more skeptical than usual. But of course, the challenges are there. And as you said, we could do a lot better. I would add to that, maybe borrowing a phrase from climate activists who say no nature, no future. I would say no ERTMS, no future for rail. Let me show you. Maybe I do the clicking, I think, right? Maybe I can sort out how to do that. Not there.
Can somebody move the slides forward for Christian? Yep.
Here we go. You can see I'm not a technical person. Yes, no future. So this is our vehicle, ERTMS, really to the future, to modernize railways. This is a special economic sector. We know that. But economic sectors, to survive, must modernize. And for that, we need... This is the ironic. The next point is digital, and I'm messing around here. So modern, digital, and also to deliver Green Deal and sustainable mobility. I want to sort of remind us of the vision that we have. A single European railway area with one harmonized train control and command system that has point one here, full interoperability. And actually, I hesitate to use the word interoperability because, as you just heard from Matthias, within ERTMS, you still have systems that are not allowing trains to cross borders. So we say interoperability. Maybe what we should be saying is full harmonization, and therefore also, of course, a unique cost-effective authorization. Advertisement for error. That's where you do it. Second point, of course, ERTMS, we also need a low-cost version for lower density lines. As you heard Matthias say, don't just think corridors and the core TEN-T network, because then we will never get to a single system, and therefore we need to also think of lower density lines and rolling it out there. Thirdly, a train control and command system that is at the heart of the train IT system. And I'll come back to how ERTMS connects to other systems. Fourthly, a system that pushes the capacity of lines to the next level of moving block. This is about efficiency, but also safety. And then, of course, we have to, there's a lot of people in the room here, and I'm sure you're all ERTMS experts, but overall, we need people. We need more people. And ERTMS and digitalization will, of course, also help us address the scarcity of human resources via more and more advanced automated train operations. And then, of course, a system that is great value for money by making it modular, simplified, and updatable online. So we have revised the TSIs, the technical specifications for interoperability, for control, command, and signaling, and that has brought a few game changers that are also important. We have FRMCS readiness, we have automated train operations, Future revisions to the TSIs are being discussed, and it's important to look into the future because that will bring additional technologies, full specifications for FRMCS, but also links to digital automatic couplings, an issue, Matthias, that has sort of reached the political level in terms of attention, not yet action, but attention. But clearly, in my own personal view, we will not make rail freight sustainable, profitable, without digital automatic couplings being rolled out. And that, of course, links to ERTMS, but also allowing capacity gains with moving block and big savings in simplifying train detection systems. These revisions will define the IT architecture and facilitate upgrades, enabling, as I said, modularity. But they will also link ERTMS more closely to all other train and railway IT systems and digital railway tools, such as our capacity and traffic management systems, where also here regulatory improvements and amendments are ongoing on rail capacity management, for instance. As we speak before the Parliament and Council is a very detailed regulation that will set a European framework for how we plan and allocate capacity. So these, of course, digitalization solutions will increase the efficiency of our network, but also the flexibility. And so therefore, the benefits are quite obvious. On interoperability, think a unique authorization era of a locomotive that can go all over Europe. That really has to be the objective that we are aiming at. One authorization of one locomotive going everywhere. And then on the modern benefits, more automation and more safety. Think of a fully automatic train that frequently serves more rural areas and even fewer rail accidents than today. Rail is safe, yes, but accidents do happen, and we can eliminate them entirely. Then also the benefits of being digital, of course, a more performing system, but also higher capacity on the network. Many of our lines are now congested, and building new capacity takes years, if not decades. We are doing everything we can with better rail capacity management, but even if the regulation I mentioned is passed by the co-legislators, it will only add the equivalent of 4% additional capacity. So we also need technical solutions to use the network better, and that is with more efficient and reliable communications. And think of trains running safely, one after the other. Think of remote controlled trains. These are part of the ways to get more out of the existing network. And then, of course, savings, because this is also about money and funding and economics. One system, radio and satellite based. Think of no costs to maintaining national systems in parallel, phasing out the legacy B systems. The sooner the better, less or no trackside equipment at all, but fully standard plug-and-play onboard equipment. So we are not setting out a vision that is perfect but expensive. We are setting out a vision that eventually, of course, will save costs.
Check.
And how will that happen? Well, I just wanted to show this slide, a lot of acronyms and abbreviations to convince you that we do actually have the process in place. We need political will. We need your commitment. Political will, I think, is illustrated by the adoption of the 10T regulation, setting the objectives. Funding is still an issue. And of course, we have your presence here today as a clear sign that we have that commitment. But we have this very well sort of structured and managed process. A large part of the innovations that are included in the regulation and standards are developed by EU Rail, Europe's Rail, our joint undertaking, funding partnership. There you have the innovation pillar, IP, that delivers the technical solutions and test them in a joined up manner between the industry and the operators. Then we have the system pillar, SP, that drafts the specifications and transforms the innovations into technical specifications. This is followed then by the deployment group. And also we have, of course, the agency coming in that brings all these specifications to fruition through the EECT, that's the extended core team of ERA, and then approving it in the control group and in the working party, which then transmits it to the Commission as the agency's recommendation. And then the member states, because this, of course, is a fully legislative process. The member states approve these specifications in the Railway Interoperability and Safety Committee called RISC, and that's a vote where Keir is the chair of the committee and manages the voting there. And then finally, the Commission, European Commission, adopts the standards. So I'm going through these details to show you, hopefully convince you, that we have a process for moving towards European harmonization, ending up, of course, then with the ERTMS coordinator to my left here, and the deployment group implementation across the Union. So we have the architecture needed to do what we have to do. Most of you know the process, but I wanted to illustrate it in detail, also to show that every single part of this process is important, meaning every single one of you involved in this process plays a role and has a responsibility for its efficiency. And I take this opportunity also to thank all of you that are engaged in this process, because we need to do this collective creation to come up with good technical regulation and standards that is vital for taking good decisions that are also informed, and I'm sure the following speakers will talk about that, informed by cost-benefit analysis, informed by the industry that has to produce and deliver the technological innovations, and of course the railway entities that have to apply it. So all of you, all of us are part of this process. So in conclusion, this conference, as I said earlier, is an opportunity for us to agree to work together and to build mutual trust that we need to go together in the same direction. It's also an ideal place to exchange views with each other, experiences, and how to get to faster deployment of ERTMS. And I hope also to test some bold ideas. So let's discuss, exchange, and apply, but to do that, all of it together. Thank you for your attention. Back to you, moderator.
So many thanks, Christian. And as I said, the purpose of this morning's session is to hear from all of the partners involved in the rollout of ERTMS across Europe. So next, I would like to invite to the stage Dr. Klaus Mindel. Klaus, I'm sure, is familiar to many of you as somebody who's been involved with ERTMS over many years, but he's currently the Director General ad interim of UNIFE, so he's very well placed to explain how, from the supplier's perspective, delivering ERTMS looks, how we're managing the technical complexities, the resources, and of course the costs. So Klaus, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Keir, and thanks for the invitation, giving me the possibility to introduce here the view of the supply industry regarding status and outlook for ERTMS. I'll try to manage that here. That seems to work. Well, before I dig into the actual subjects, I would like to briefly upfront introduce UNIFE, but very briefly. So we gather more than 100 railway supply companies, making up a majority of the European market and 50% of the worldwide market. Our mission is to promote rail as preferable transport mode for sustainable mobility. And in order to make it easier for you, I just would like to refer to a publication of a priority letter, a priority document, which we have recently published, where you can read about our priorities. It's about, to summarize, about financial support and the push for accelerated ERTMS implementation, but also DAC and FRMCS. To save some time, I will just leave you the possibility to read in the original paper. So let's come to the important topic. I would like to take here a business perspective and refer to something we called and developed common business objectives that has been originally developed in Shift to Rail, but further confirmed and discussed in the ERJU system pillar. The important thing is that this is not just a collection of business objectives from the different stakeholders in the domain, so from railways, from the different views and suppliers. The important thing is that these common business objectives have been developed from a railway system perspective, from a perspective of the entire sector, in order to support the progress and the evolution of railways. So there is one fundamental objective mentioned here in the middle: safety and security. Well, safety is obviously a fundament for railway operation. Security becomes more and more important. So in the ERGU system pillar, overall, and also in others, this topic, this feature is addressed, and we are on the stage to implement also security features here. But this is the fundament. Around these objectives, we have three main business objectives, namely increased cost efficiency, higher performance of the railway system, and quicker rollout of solutions. I think this gives already some kind of orientation. It's important for our work in the system pillar, but overall as a sector. And here it is important to note that they should not be addressed in isolation, but in combination. So what do I mean with that? So if we want to achieve a modal shift to rail, we need to roll out quicker. Well, the railway sector is unfortunately, regarding time constants, not the most dynamic sector in transport. We have to be quicker, but we have also to increase the performance of the system. Only then we will achieve the capacity we need for a modal shift, meaning of transport. But of course, this has to be affordable. So cost efficiency is the third element which can make it happen. Well, of course, there are more effects coming from that regarding resources availability. So overall, the efficiency is a key word to be considered here. So this is why the summary comes up: the railway sector will only benefit substantially if we implement more cost-efficient and high-performance solutions quicker. Again, these business objectives shall be treated in combination. Then it makes sense. So where are we with the fulfillment of these objectives? So regarding safety, well, ETCS itself is safe. It just needs to be implemented to reach safety. Security, let's say we are on the way to resolve this. Implementation is needed here. Overall, again, here efficiency plays a role. So here and there we could improve the efficiency of processes to address this in a more economical way. With the game changers, we have indeed introduced features which will increase the performance of the railway system. So I think we are in a good way here, and further improvements are under development in the ERJU, also in the innovation pillar and system pillar, both. But the main area of activities needs to be around cost efficiency and quicker rollout. And this is the reason why you find 2 red arrows there. And of course, they are linked, as I tried to explain before. And I would like to dig into a bit deeper and have a closer look on how to improve cost efficiency and accelerated rollout. So here I want to focus on requirements only. Certainly there are other elements, factors which play a role. Financing, of course, plays a role. If there's no financial support, capacity, then, well, a rollout will be hindered. It's about coordination. It's about the design of implementation projects. If projects are too fragmented, too small, of course, the overhead and the efficiency will decrease. So these are all influencing parameters, but here it's only about requirements. So these are the requirements we as suppliers are facing when we implement or develop products and implement projects. And I would like to start with technical requirements. And the clear advice here is abstain from project-specific and national requirements. Use harmonized European ones. No deviation. Secondly, and this is pretty obvious, for operational requirements, yeah, these have to be harmonized. We are facing all over Europe too many, and we have to implement harmonized operational requirements. And lastly, the regulatory requirements. Well, of course, there are different views on that, but from our point of view, there is definitely room for simplifying authorization process to be more efficient in this respect. And overall, with these measures, we will, I think, have the chance to achieve a substantial positive impact on cost efficiency and implementation speed. So a few words more on harmonized operation and why and how to implement. So the first bold statement tells here differences in operation are the main reason for complexity and cost. This is a statement we find in a document called Common Business Objectives. Very simple, but it's describing an extremely important insight. On the other hand, well, implementation is a challenge of harmonized operation. Definitely, yeah. And we talked about Ukraine, well, not too long ago, luckily long enough. Railway operation was even used to prevent neighboring countries to enter the railway network. So there were even hurdles implemented, which we have now to break down. But it's a challenge to do so. And the question is, of course, how could we do this? Why did we start earlier? Basically, and this is a tool I think which should help here, that pure cap signaling is an enabler for an implementation of harmonized operational rules. So once a driver is confronted exclusively with a harmonized DMI, he has to act accordingly. This is not everything, it's regarding signaling, not solving everything, but it's at least a reasonable tool to make progress. So to summarize, to summarize why operational harmonization is key, we have today around 100 requirement baselines in Europe, which lead to high cost and market fragmentation. Well, we shouldn't argue about whether it's 120 or 80. This is the order of magnitude. And without harmonized operation requirements, with new features like ATO, moving block, etc., we will not just add additional baselines, we will multiply the complexity because they can be used in combination. So it's a multiplication. So consequently, the complexity and cost of solutions will increase disproportionately. So at the end, nobody will be able to pay this. Nobody. It will be too expensive, it will be too complex, and the rollout will not be feasible at a reasonable speed. So this was the motivation for the system pillar to work on the definition of operational harmonization. We are on the way. That just needs to be implemented. So that's the call. There's a condition for success for the railway sector. We have to move towards a European railway system, including the implementation of operational rules. There is no option. Thank you.
Many thanks, Klaus. So some important challenges there, and I'm sure there have been many people in the audience who would agree that operational harmonization is a great thing, but they will then also tell us why it's difficult to achieve short term. So I think later in the session, or certainly over the course of the rest of the conference, I mean, that's a very important issue to be picked up. I'd like now, though, to welcome the next of our stakeholder representatives to the floor, and that is Dr. Alberto Mazzola, who is, of course, the Director General of the Community of European Railways. And Alberto will expand further on the subject you've already heard something of from Matthias on the need for greater coordination and a coordination manager for ERTMS rollout. Matthias.
Thank you, Kier. Thank you also, Joseph, for inviting CER to this event. The Community of European Railways representing about 75% of the infrastructure managers of Europe, 85% of rail freight operations, and 94% of rail passengers operations in Europe. And I will speak representing all these worlds. So the ones who are buying ERTMS, installing, and let's say using ERTMS. We recently published our CR manifesto for the next 5 years. One of the 4 priorities that we have in our manifesto is digital railways. And number 1 in digital railways is ERTMS. What do we say there? And then I will go on the next points. We say that we need definitely ERTMS to be one of the priorities for the next term, and where we get to the point. And we take stock of where we are. I think Matthias Ruud has made already the analysis. 9,000 kilometers, you said, how many vehicles? 10,000 vehicles, more or less. So we are 20% of vehicles which are equipped after 29 years. We have 10% of the TEN-T network which is equipped, and 5% of the railway network which is equipped. So definitely, as we said, it's not a success story. It's a 29 years initiative. I still remember I was discussing with some of you the first conference on ERTMS. We are discussing baseline 1 and limited supervision. Now we are discussing baseline 4 and integrating in FRMCS. So we made a lot of evolution, technical evolution, but we are still in terms of real deployment, I would say, very far away. I go on with this myself?
Yes. Christian, the thing works, yes? Yes.
Is the green?
Yep.
Okay. So we reflected among our CEOs, both from infrastructure, passenger, and freight, and we reflected how we can improve the situation, what we should do. And we concentrated on all the aspects you have seen, but one aspect that we would like to see definitely a change is about the governance. The governance that we have today, we have seen we have a coordinator. We are very proud to have such a coordinator, and we would like that the coordinator stays and continue to work on that. We have SINEA, who is dealing with some of the funding of the deployment of ERTMS at European level. The European Agency for Railways, dealing with the specification and authorization. Europe's Rail Joint Undertaking, develop new technologies and innovation. But then we have infrastructure managers that are deploying this, member states who are the main source of funding, railway undertakings that need to use it, and suppliers that need to provide it. I think we came to the point we need to have an integrated approach. This is the European Court of Auditors before the war of Ukraine, so now after inflation probably the cost is much higher, estimated that ERTMS is going to cost in terms of investment 100 billion euros. So it's a huge investment, a huge project or program, let me say, that so far has not been dealt according to the value and the cost that we have. So to boost the ERTMS deployment, we would like to see, I would say, a stronger governance and to be able to have a governance that is able to integrate all these actors. Sorry. So what we would like to see is to have a centralized governance. We would like to see, and we have in our program, to have a digital railways unit dealing only with digital railways inside DG Move, being able to bring around all the interested parties, as we said, all the agencies, all the activities inside the European Union, the infrastructure managers, the member state, and as well as possible, observator or contributor, railway undertakings and suppliers. So all these people should be around. We have seen other initiatives in Europe, like for instance Galileo, where Europe decided to set up an agency. And I think it would be up to the GMove to reflect on this. Because if we think today, who is responsible that we are in this situation? We are at 10% of what we should have done. I think somebody should take the responsibility. If you look around, nobody is responsible. It's a collective exercise where nobody at the end will be, I'm responsible where I am. Who will be responsible for the success? It's still a collective exercise. I think we need to have a stronger boost here. Some of the things that we like to see is synchronized the deployment of ERTMS on the lines and on the rolling stock. Every time you go around, you see, you hear, I've installed ERTMS on my rolling stock, I'm not able to run on the line. Infrastructure manager was saying, I'm installing ERTMS on the line, nobody's using it because rolling stocks are not equipped. Then you have pieces where you install ERTMS on a piece of line, then you have a legacy system, then another piece of line. So we would like to see that this is over and we are able to see the full picture and the network picture, as the coordinator has said. We would like to have facilitating also the access to funding, because even investors look at these things. If you ask for money and you say, how do you use the money you are investing, they look at this and say, this is not productive. You will not use it. It's just an increase of cost. We need to provide all these things, then common principles, as well as how to deal with the transition. ERTMS is a program, it's not a project. It's something that goes to last for decades. We will have innovation, continuous innovation. We told baseline 1, we are talking baseline 4, we will see new baselines coming in. But we need to be able to migrate and to manage this migration, like we do in the telecom. On our mobile system, we evolved from one system to the other, and we have been able to use also the investment of the past. I think the priorities that we would like to see is, first of all, coordinated and synchronized on-board and trackside ERTMS deployment. We got it on the 10T. Now we need to make it real. So there is the definition of the 10T, but now we need to see how do we do this. So we need also to go to the operational side. We like to have a better access to the available funding and being able to coordinate them. CEF is an important tool in order to bring all the others together, but let's be clear, it is not enough. So we need to be able to use the cohesion fund, which is much bigger sources of funding, InvestEU, Recovery and Resilience Facility, and Europe is reflecting to have possibly an investment fund. I think if there is an investment fund at the European level, we should be part of it. Let's see what the other state and governments will discuss. They discussed recently about the single market. I think as a sector and institution, we managed to have railways inside. We managed to have ERTMS there. They will further discuss on it. A point is how to increase productivity in Europe. And for our side, how to increase productivity in railways. And to increase productivity in railways, we will need ERTMS. Then we would like to see a stronger discussion between the agency. Let me say, sometimes when we introduce new innovation, we don't find that the migration is properly done, and we find ourselves be stuck investment. I still remember some discussion of the past where all the investment on ERTMS had been lost. So the first one we invested on ERTMS lost all their money, and we had several CEOs inside our association complaining on that. We need definitely to avoid it. The point of operational rules has been developed before. We strongly believe that we need to work on that, because if we have ERTMS, is also to be able to run trains in an harmonized way and simplify. And let me say also, we are hosted by the agency, we need to simplify the process of ERTMS authorization and approval procedures. Some of our members, particularly infrastructure managers, are waiting years. They are launching tenders, awarding. Then after awarding the tender, they need to review again the documents that have been, I would say, at the basis of the tender, and in order to get authorization. Some of them are still waiting. In these days, are waiting for the authorization of tenders that were done some years ago. I think this process needs to be simplified. And for this, we need a proper governance. Looking ahead, FRMCS is one of the examples, but we can use also satellites replacing balises. You can think about new innovations. FRMCS is the story that is coming now. So we need to move. We need to move from the current communication system to a new one. And I think this moving, and we are studying how to do it, is incompatible with baseline 3. So infrastructure managers and railway undertakings that are installing ERTMS today, they know in 2032, most likely their systems will be incompatible with the new one. And everybody's thinking, am I right to spend my money today, or should I wait 2032? This is what we have seen for the many years. And I think this is an example how we need to manage this transition, how we need to have somebody who is responsible of this. If I had, and I'm looking, I must say, I'm looking for a few months now to understand who is taking the decision to go for FRMCS incompatible with the baseline 3, let me say, I didn't find so far who is responsible for this. And this is something that we should reflect. This is why we are pleading very much on the governance. And we hope that the European Commission, and particularly DG Move, should take, you were very inspiring, should take this lead, and all of us supporting this move. Because when member head of state will look at this again, we say, what is the story? What will be the difference from the past? And I think we are not able to show that there will be a difference from the past. It will be very difficult to get the money that we need in order to progress. Thank you again for the invitation.
Right, so many challenges posed to us by Alberto there, which of course is why we're here. But before we get into a discussion, I would like to invite our final speaker for the panel, Marie-Louise Dominguez, who is the president of EIM, the European Infrastructure Managers, and also the international officer for ADIF. Marie-Louise, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Keir. And good morning, everyone. It's a very big pleasure to be here, in my case, for the first time. So thank you, Joseph. And a pleasure to be here in Valenciennes. And so liberalizing passenger traffic, starting with high speed, has been one of the greatest challenges in ADIF. And I think now, at this point, we can say one of our biggest success so far. How this happened? Okay, I think we thought of an innovative and open to discussion process. We gave some steps before going to open the market. For sure, it was a very, we cooperate a lot with railway undertakings. We listen everybody, and I think the key to positive results was the capacity optimization process. It was objective, it was transparent, non-discriminatory rules, and the framework capability statement was, we created. And for sure, the key tool was the deployment of ERTMS for this harmonious integration. The full implementation of the system not only has enhanced the safety and efficiency on Spanish network, but also opened the door to a future where cross-border travel is more seamless and accessible for ever before. And the result is that Spain is currently the only country with 3 different companies running in the same corridors. And in fact, 4 brands, because we have Wigo, we have Irio, and Renfe, AVE, the previous product, and now also the low-cost company from Renfe, Hablo. Okay. It's not very clear. Okay. So today I will give you a brief glimpse about how was the deployment of ERTMS in Spain, all the decisions that we were making for ERTMS on a deep network, what was the impact of ERTMS on the Spanish railway liberalization, and I will finalize describing what are the improvements on design, production, and maintenance phases that could help for a faster deployment. So, for deployment of ERTMS, yeah, no, sorry. If you could please move it for me, because I'm sorry. Is this one?
Supposed to be.
Okay, great, thank you. Sorry. Okay. So there were some decisions that conditioned the deployment of the ERTMS in Spain. We decided to equip all high-speed lines and trains with the ERTMS system. We had already made a decision to open to the supplier market, so we allowed contracts from all different track size suppliers. And finally, we assured the operational interoperability all on-board equipment suppliers. And I have to say that ADIF have more than 20 years of experience operating with ERTMS, and we have a wide experience in implementing and migrating all ERTMS versions due to the evolution of technical specifications. And we have nearly 3,000 kilometers of lines equipped with ERTMS. As we have heard this morning for Matthias, in total we have 9,000, so in Spain we have a third of the global ERTMS lines in Europe. And it is not only on high speed, but also in conventional and commuter lines. Here you can see in this map the current Spanish ERTMS network, and as you can see, most of the high-speed lines are covered either in ERTMS level 1 or level 2. In this map, I think it's quite interesting because here you can see the different suppliers for the current lines equipped in ERTMS. As you may see, I think we have all suppliers on our network. And also in the short term, as you may know, the ERTMS deployment is not yet finished, but new ERTMS sectors will be added in the short time. And also in some lines that now we have a level 1 is planned to be upgraded to level 2. And you can see how some of the most relevant ERTMS projects to be placed in service in the upcoming years. But these are the closest, I mean the ones who will be finished in the coming years, but for sure many others will join, and all of them will be part of the national implementation plan to be sent to the European Commission. So the key aspects for the liberalization process, the open to competition, I think were that we could have an optimization of capacity with a continuity of the current services and adding a significant new capacity to allow more railway undertakings to operate. Secondly, transparency and non-discrimination. We defined the framework capacity statements to ensure transparency, non-discrimination, and establish objective allocation rules in NS. And settle the commitment with railway undertakings and their benefits, thanks to short turnaround times in terminals, high frequencies of services, and intensive use of rolling stock. So it was clear from the beginning that for sure we opened full access to the whole network from December 2020, but as I said, it was clear from the very beginning that there were 3 main corridors and they were the greatest interest to the candidates. As you can see on the map, Madrid-Barcelona French border, Madrid to the east, Valencia and Alicante, and Madrid to the south of Spain, Sevilla and Malaga. And now, ADIF is on its way to promote the open markets in more corridors that we call the second phase of the process. The 3 candidates, once we decided which corridors were the most interesting for the market, the 3 candidates prepared for the liberalization packages, and what we had was a package 1 awarded to Renfe, the incumbent. They added their current AVE trains and the new low-cost product, ABLO, as I said before. Then package B, awarded to Irio, with a high-frequency product strategy and a fleet of 20 new trains. And package 3, awarded to Yugo, competing with a low-cost product with a fleet of 14 trains from SNCF. And you can see here the numbers of services and the starting dates in all routes. There are only 2 that will start this year. It is for Wigo to the south, as they didn't have LZB on the trains, but they are getting it. As you could see in this chart, in those lands equipped with ERTMS, a higher passenger demand was obtained. And in fact, as you can see, the increasement in passengers has been so huge that in the case of Madrid-Barcelona, the target set for 2030 has already been exceeded. And here you can clearly see how the impact of the liberalization skyrocketed the demand of high-speed services by more than 30% in 1 year. And in the specific case of Madrid-Valencia, it doubled in 1 year the number of passengers. Thanks to tools like ERTMS, we can offer more high-speed services for the citizens because we are offering more capacity for operators. Also, the subsequent reduction of ticket prices according to Spain's regulator, with a 40% ticket price reduction. Before we were speaking about 30%, Christian, but no, it is, the regulator says it's almost 40% of decreasement of the price of ticket. And we are drawing people to railways with a larger offer, lower prices, and overall with competition. This proves that our proactive liberalization model was well designed in cooperation with all stakeholders, and competition is positive both for users and companies and also for infrastructure managers. Here you can see this data come from the regulator as well, and the positive tendency since we opened to the market the corridor. And overall, as after the pandemic, the increasement of traffic for railways, and also that the incumbent didn't lose its market, the result is clear that we have increased the number of passengers that have shifted to railways. And so some improvements for a faster deployment of ERTMS. Let's talk about how we can optimize ERTMS framework for faster and more efficient deployment. All my colleagues speaking before me have said, and also be aligned with the new Rail 10T. First and foremost, it's crucial to stabilize migration strategies across Europe with a minimum or non-existent impact to the installed baselines and national implementation plans. The principle here must be not to hinder what is already working and getting a continuity with the principles stated in the recently approved CCS-TSI, for example, the FRMCS integration. And we need to keep working towards simplified processes for authorization, as the ESC checks and the trackside approval, and look for improvement where necessary. This improved efficiency will bring benefits to all the actors and a positive cost-benefit analysis of projects in terms of resources needed and associated costs. And also, there is the need for a better alignment regarding the Europe's rail initiatives and the ERTMS change control management processes. And all the representative bodies need to be more coordinated, as Alberto said before. But our efforts won't succeed with the commitment of without the commitment of all stakeholders, including industry leaders, the railway undertakings and freight companies, and in the end, passengers and citizens are the ones that benefit of the use of an improved ERTMS. So therefore, the processes for applying the necessary correction to errors due to backwards compatibility need to be applied with involvement of all actors, and mainly the industry, for non-impacting service solutions. And moreover, timely delivery of validated and complete specifications for new technologies, such as FMCS, is paramount. The path is set for this new communication technology in Europe, and the specifications and planned migrations must not impact operations in any way. By ensuring a seamless evolution of ERTMS, we can guarantee the continued safety and efficiency for our railway system. So in summary, optimizing the ERTMS framework for faster deployment requires a concerted effort from all involved parties. By stabilizing migration strategies, simplifying administrative processes, fostering collaboration, we can initiate a new era of railway technology that benefits everyone. So let's continue this journey together with a shared commitment to innovation and progress. And to finish, let me share with you that last year, according to our data, nearly 80% of travelers between Madrid and Barcelona, you know, the main two cities in Spain, chose high speed over air travel. That means more than 10 points higher than before competition. This evidence is another example that reflects that ADIF's liberalization model was right. The market reacted in a very positive way, and it shows that there's room for improvement. There was room for improvement. The liberalization has allowed ADIF to capitalize our past investments by providing us large revenues that we can reinvest, and it has also brought thousands of new users to railways, as you have been able to see on our figures. Our main source of pride is this. High speed has become more affordable, and more people can now choose railways over other more polluting, more congesting means of transport. And this is good in terms of environment, but it's also socially just because now high speed is affordable for all citizens. So thank you very much for your attention.
Great, thank you, and it's great to hear some positive examples of ERTMS really being part of the solution and helping drive a very significant growth of rail traffic in Spain. Well, we now actually have the best part of 40 minutes for questions, which is really good. So please keep them coming on the Slido. I have them here on the phone. That's why I've got the phone out to read the questions. So let's start off with one which I think is aimed, probably it starts with Matthias, but it can be picked up by the others. And this is from Gabriel du Plessis from SNCF and CER. So how could DG Move better coordinate fundings and objectives? He sees a need for better coordination between TEN-T and CEF, well, between the different versions of TEN-T and then CEF over time, I think.
I think this is a general question about European governance and what European governance can actually produce. Where I agree very much, and Alberto, we discuss this very, very often. I agree very much with the idea that we need to reinforce European governance in terms, first of all, of getting our own act together in terms of all the different bits and bobs of Commission and European institutions working together. But also then, that is for me the first pillar. The second pillar is then that we need to get together the stakeholders. We used to have a stakeholder platform with a memorandum of understanding of 2016. I think this needs updating, and hopefully we will get to that. And then there's a third pillar, which is actually the national ERTMS coordinators. And my feeling is that there's even no real coordination on ERTMS in all member states. We have quite a lot of different actors in there, and so that member states also get together. Then if we've got these three pillars, we need to think whether we need to go further in terms of centralization. And for me, I always come back to my experience that I had when launching Galileo, which is a very different one. We had the money on the European Union level in terms of actually making it work, and it was paid out of European Union funds, whereas 95% of ERTMS deployment is national money. And so how do we get to better coordination there? Some of it is obviously when we actually mobilize private investors and manage to get private investors involved, then we can also use, perhaps with the EIB together, have a stronger coordination. But I don't see member states at the moment, infrastructure managers, all saying, okay, great, ERTMS deployment on the European Union level. We put 10% of our money in a fund and let somebody else manage it. I think that's the big difficulty. We had a situation, and I'll stop on that, we had a situation which was quite extraordinary, which was the Recovery and Resilience Facility, where to a certain extent some member states actually had access to European funds and could use them well. And fortunately they had prepared projects, but other member states didn't do so, and we couldn't force them to do so. So unfortunately, my answer is probably the colleague from SNCF is right in terms of saying we're not going to give up our money, but I think we need to a certain extent create a situation where we push everyone in the same direction more than we have done up to now.
Maybe Alberto, you want to come in on this as well, because I mean, I think Matthias has put his finger on the problem. How can we get a strong coordinator or strong coordination at European level if most of the money is not coming from us? And I mean, we're railway people here, we would probably like there to be more money, but that is not very likely, I have to say. So it will continue to be national money.
If I may say, also is the same issue for TEN-T. It's not that on TEN-T the European Union is providing most of the money. We are providing between 5 and 10% of the money on average. On cross-border projects, you go up to 40, 50%, so you have a much bigger role on cross-border projects. But let me say at TEN-T, the fact that you provide the guidelines is very helpful because member states follow. But let me, I put my shoes in a private investor, if I may, and I'm looking at ERTMS. If I put my money, I support member state, for instance, to install ERTMS, they need to find a way they pay me back. I'm not talking about public investor, a private one that needs to have a return. So you could say I'm paying based on availability. So availability of the line, so the infrastructure manager should make available the line with a certain characteristics, as you do on highways, for instance, and be paid back, and I would say being able to pay back, the state should pay back the investor. But this you need to have a visibility and a clear visibility for everybody. And if I'm a private investor and I see that in 5 years' time my system will be out of service, and I'm planning a return for 30, 40 years because we are talking long-term investment, I would say, look, this is not a good investment because somebody in 5 years will not pay me back anywhere. So not find a way. Why we are saying the governance? This is a complex project. Very big value of money. Most of the money needs to come from member states, but you need to provide the visibility and also the insurance that everything is properly managed. Today, we don't have it. I still remember a former CEO of OBB that became chancellor afterwards. And speaking about the ERTMS investment, when he was the CEO of OBB, said, all the money I invested has been lost. I think these are examples that don't convince even public and private investors. So we need to change definitely this situation, and we need to have somebody who is in charge of it and bringing all the energies, because it's not only the Commission alone. We need to bring all the energies here around. And as I said, head of states are reflecting how to increase investments in green mobility and so on. It's a big opportunity. We have a big chance. What we need for the ERTMS to provide really a very good governance, very good vision for the next 30, 40 years. So this is something that we are working year by year, and at the end, the result is what we have today.
No, thanks. I mean, I think we all agree with you that there is a strong case for more centralized governance, but the question is still, how are you going to persuade member states, or how us you have to persuade them, how are we going to persuade member states to allow that power to a central authority if it's not being smoothed along by some money, if it's really, yes, it's necessary you sacrifice your freedom in the greater good. Christian, you wanted to come in.
Thanks, Keir. Let's try to spice it up a little bit. I mean, first of all, I agree with 90% of Alberto's call for strong governance, and I welcome the sort of the position that you want to accelerate and see this implemented. This is great to hear. But I also echo Matthias's word that we don't have the financial firepower at the central level. And I'm tempted to sort of take the example of the question from SNCF and illustrate to you what it would mean if we were given the power to, as you put it, I think, coordinate and synchronize deployment. Because in the case of France, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matthias, what we have, if you showed a map, are islands of ERTMS deployment, and certainly well below the European average, lagging well behind. If I was to direct, synchronize, and coordinate ERTMS deployment in France, where's the gentleman from SNCF? You can beat me up over coffee. I would direct you to start deploying ERTMS on the parts of the network linking to Eurotunnel, linking to Spain, linking to Italy, and linking to Belgium, so that you could get the benefits you just saw from Marisa of integrated operations cross-border. And I would direct you to take away these technical barriers to entry for also your own company projecting la gloire de la SNCF au-delà de la frontière de la France, all over Europe, etc. That would be the synchronized and coordinated European response to ERTMS deployment in France. And I will direct you to do that, but you will be paying for it. Because there won't be extra EU money. It is unlikely to happen. I'm not saying this to say careful what you wish for, because I think this is what we need. I always like listening to Marisa, because what you saw there in the Spanish example is really amazing, right? It is exactly the vision of what we want to happen all over Europe. A very performant high-speed network, several operators, ridership going up, displacing aviation, and prices going down by up to 40%. We're going to release a price study on affordability, looking at how liberalization has worked across Europe, and Spain and Italy are really the examples. So, Keir, I stop there, but yes, by all means, more centralized power to the European Commission, and I think, Matthias, your role is also strengthened in the new 10T regulation, but you need to be clear what it means. It means we either need more money at the EU level, or you need to accept that there will therefore be decisions, binding decisions, on how national funds are invested on national territory. I'm ready for it.
Great. Alberto.
I agree, Christian, but please bring also member states and infrastructure managers together. Since you don't have the power of the money, you need to convince them. Since they are putting more of the money, you need to bring them together. Otherwise, we don't succeed. So it's important that you bring them together, because they are bringing the real money and they see the benefit. But let's say, I'm very much supporting you taking a bigger role, and you need to take it, but you need to bring them also. Otherwise,
sure. No, not just directing without consulting. Point taken.
If I may just put a plug in terms of the future debate that we are going to have on CEF3. I think we need to make very, very sure that CEF3 increases. CEF2 was a disappointment. Let's be honest amongst ourselves. We basically just stabilized the amount of money which was available. In reality, we need at least 2 times, if not 3 times more money in terms of CEF. And then we can do the things also in terms of saying co-financing. If you don't build the connections between France and Spain, you will not get co-financing from the European Union, and then the co-financing is actually relevant. If, on the other hand, the co-financing is not relevant, I think we will have a much more national thinking on that. Just to defend France, if I look at the EDP, you are actually fulfilling 100%, because you were prudent in terms of saying what you would be able to do. In that sense, I think there's also quite some consequences in terms of reflecting on the future EDP and how this will look like.
Great, thanks for all that. I think we can move on to a slightly different subject. Klaus, in your speech you mentioned the huge costs created by the diverging specifications, to some extent being forced on the supply industry by member states, by the individual railways. And there's a question in the chat from Enno Weber, who is currently the technical director of CER, asking what future dialogue there should be between the rail operating community and the supply industry to address this. What's the scope for working on this together? And I would add, what can we do at the union level to help?
Yeah, thank you, Enno, for that question. Seriously, Matthias also mentioned this in his speech, cost drivers. So where are the cost drivers? And he was so fair to explain, well, this cost is not just a matter for the supply industry. It's a general concern. And if we don't apply a holistic view, approach jointly, we will just fail. Yeah, this does not work. So we have started as the industry a while ago an initiative which was exactly addressing cost drivers for the onboard retrofit that could be easily extended to new rolling stock. It, from our point of view, should also be updated, because the measures we defined at that point in time have not all been addressed, yeah, unfortunately. Some have, for example, modularization has improved, and if we have this now in the CCS-TSI, that's a progress, standards interfaces on board. So there is progress, nevertheless, there's still a lot of room for improvement. And that should be, again, a sector approach, because at that point in time, we did this together. We had a really constructive discussion between suppliers and railways to do that. And our suggestion is just to continue with this exercise and then update that.
Thanks, Klaus. Yes. Do you want to add anything, Alberto?
Let's say Enno raised a painful question. Let me say this, because we are looking at the cost ourselves. We had an intense discussion in Madrid also with the chairman of UNIFE and our members, where we discussed about the price and how we can reduce the price. I think, as I said, we are talking about 100, 120 billion euros of investment concerning the digital, including also interlockings. So if we manage to reduce by any percentage point, these are billions. We have seen in the last 20 years, let me say, that cost didn't go down, go up. A locomotive, let me say, an estimation is 5 million euros, buying a locomotive, and the component of control command has always increased. This is the only one. The rest of the locomotives went down, but the price of control command increased, and it can become quite a substantial part of the cost. So this will have a direct effect on the rail undertakings. Will have in terms of, so if we are able to reduce the cost, we will have also lower price in providing the services, and also in terms of, I would say, if, when you cross the borders, more efficient way to go around. What can we do? I think taking out Class B system should help. Because now, when we hear that to adapt to Class B system around Europe, increase your cost of ERTMS, so this means that we should find a way and we should not find ourselves that is becoming more expensive. So we should estimate after this discussion that this price will go down, and we need to look at this. It is a difficult subject to be discussed because we are buying by public tenders. So we are tendering this, and then we are receiving the bid, and we look at these things. But maybe there is also a way, and we are discussing with Joseph also, to find a way to have some template. It can work, it cannot work, but we might find, for instance, some template. I'm thinking particularly about infrastructure managers, but also revenue undertakings that simplify the tender and make easier also to compare the prices and probably go down on that way. So definitely this is an issue we need to address.
Yep.
And any suggestion from the suppliers, to the point of Class B systems, is welcome, because it is also in your interest, because if you are not able to deliver what is needed for the next years, at the end we will collapse altogether.
If I may say a few words, I think we had a discussion yesterday in the workshops also on the costs, and what was presented there is in reality, if you look at onboard retrofitting, you have to distinguish between three phases. The first phase is the design phase, or the first of class, and the cost is something between 20 and 30% of the overall cost. The second one is then the deployment phase, which is the locomotives as such and being fitted, which is something like 40 to 50%. And then again, we have the authorization phase, which is 20 to 30%. And if we look at some of the elements that we can deal with, some of it is question of having better tenders, having better public procurement, looking at supply chain, seeing how costs could go down also in terms of not having to cater for different Class B systems. But some of it is actually simple stuff like translations of documentation, not available documentation, all that type of thing. And the other, that's at the beginning, and at the other end, and there we have to try and see whether we can't develop a kind of European prototype strategy, where different railway undertakings, member states operate together to see a little bit whether there cannot be a more harmonized prototype strategy. And then on the other side, authorizations, and I only want to focus on one thing, and that is ESCs. If you look at the ESCs, they cost something like 100,000 to 150,000 per ESC. So we are very quickly in millions if we have to run with the locomotives, and we lose a lot of time because the time in terms of getting spaces in the laboratories is also very, very difficult. So to a certain extent, I think one of the things that we can do together is also attack the ESCs. So these are things which I think, and the more we do studies and study that, the more we will see what are the actual cost drivers, and see how we can actually at least attack the low-hanging fruit, which I think we should be doing and there we can work together.
Yes, I wanted to add something. I agree with you. I wanted to add about the time it takes to deploy ERTMS. It is totally different on a greenfield, a new line, than in a working line. So I have to say that if we have just deployed 9,000 kilometers, a third of them in Spain, but most of them in new railway lines, I'm a bit worried because you have said that there are not enough experts in ERTMS. Now we have very important plans in all our countries. So if we don't simplify and we don't harmonize strictly, increasement of prices, I don't want to think about it, and the time it will take to really deploy what we need is going to be a real challenge.
Thanks. Let's move on to some different questions again. There are actually a number of questions on your experience in Spain. Several, or at least one that's been liked by a lot of people, is what are the advantages of using different suppliers for trackside, and what were the disadvantages? What were the advantages and disadvantages of using different trackside suppliers?
Okay, maybe I would say, let's start for disadvantages, the testing. You have to do a lot of testing because you have different suppliers on trackside, but on rolling stock. So you have to do a lot of testing. The advantage, I could say, in some way, we have been in Spain a big tester for the whole Europe and the whole world. I mean, if we have been able to make work with a supplier on track and different suppliers on rolling stock, because before we just had the incumbents. So, okay, you could make work one supplier on track and another supplier on railway on the rolling stock. But now with liberalization, we have different suppliers for rolling stock running over a different supplier. So I think it's been quite difficult. For instance, the tunnel in Madrid between Chamartín and Atocha. There you have the connection from different lines from the north of Spain to the south and east of Spain. And the testing lasted a long time, but finally it worked. So I think the disadvantage was that, but the big advantage maybe for the rest of the continent, the rest of the European Union, is that, okay, if it has worked in Spain, for sure it's going to work all abroad.
So you're proving the way ahead for us. Thank you for that.
Can I?
Yes.
Because I mean, I consider myself an expert on Spain, having been there 4 times last year during your presidency. No, I'm only kidding. But I mean, Spain, your case is unique in the sense that during the 80s you used national but also EU cohesion funds extremely strategically to build this new high speed. And I think we should be honest that this competition, this model works because you have a high quality network of the infrastructure, and it's not necessarily the case in all member states. Having said that, I'm really struck by the variety of manufacturers, suppliers that you have on the network, and that I think
we have all of them.
Is a strength. Yeah, it really is a strength. Because let's address the elephant in the room, if you don't mind, Klaus. Not you being the elephant, but but industry. When I speak to many of the infrastructure managers or RUs that are here, what they complain about is vendor lock-in and being, captive customers and not getting the service they expect from Unife. And now you're getting ready to hit me with the microphone, and that's fine. But we are talking about setting a European standard. We're not there yet. I accept that. An industry has to deliver both the Class B and the new ones, and the baseline is changing, etc. But unless with this standardization we get cost efficiency, prices going down, none of us will be able to go to the political level and say, this is a great investment. Prices are going down because we are unifying, standardizing, harmonizing. If they are going up, they will say, well, what is going on here? Is it because there's a monopoly in industry, or what is what's the problem? So now I leave it at that, Kier, because I hope this has provoked Klaus to hit me with a microphone.
Well, it motivated me, not provoked me to hit you with a microphone here. Of course not. No, but you made the point already. Well, Spain is demonstrating there's actually not necessarily a supply lock-in. This is an open market. But I perhaps should draw your attention also to something else. There's even between railways the possibility for competition in a certain country. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, competition is a motivation for everybody. It's a motivation for suppliers. It should be a motivation for all of us. Yeah, because at the end we will benefit all.
Which is why we create the framework for competition with interoperability, etc. Alberto.
I don't want to comment on competition,
No,
but I want to comment. I think we need to reflect. If we have an acceleration, and we hope to have an acceleration in deployment of ERTMS, we will need to have the industrial capacity to fulfill it. And at the same time, let me say also,
I think
industrial capacity or willingness to participate to tenders. That's a key point.
Let me take it. I think we have, we've got a mic out there. We want to share the Czech experience, I think.
Good morning. My name is Vladimir Kampik, and I have a question to you because I was participating in one of the workshop yesterday, and we were focused for identifying the obstacles for the fast deployment of ERTMS. And what was repeated by all the participants at this workshop, it was the human resources. And I think that this is a touching of not only the things you are discussing now. I mean the technical problems or whatever things, but we are now really transferring the railway to the digital era, and we need attract the new people, other people than the, let's say, old-fashioned railwaymen, as we are, the most of us here. Yeah. And this would be, let's say, a very important topic for our future. Not only to focus for the stable versions and the baselines and whatever, because even if we will have this, we need skilled people. How to attract the others and how to make them, let's say, this railway business interesting, because the signaling business, especially signaling business, for the public is really invisible. They see the train drivers, they see the conductors, they see the dispatchers, but nobody knows about the signaling, and the signaling is somewhere behind, and we need to attract the audience to put it to the public and to show it as an interesting area for their future. How to deal it with your organizations? I mean, looking to Klaus, looking to Alberto, also to EIM, to Maria. So.
No, many thanks for the question. I mean, of course, it's a very important one, and CER and I think UNIFE have actually been working with the Commission on a project looking at this. And of course, getting more people into the industry is one part of the solution, but also reducing some of the complexity and some of the duplication so we don't need quite so many people is the other part of the answer. I don't know if anybody of you wants any more about staff in particular.
Okay. Yeah, this is some kind of other elephant in the room, yeah, resources. And of course there is no just single element and just one measure which solves everything. From my point of view, it's a bundle of activities, actions we need to take. And to refer to what we experience here this week, from my point of view, one reason for the success of the workshops here at the ERA conference is because it is an opportunity to share information, to share knowledge. And this is really an added value. And we should perhaps consider more opportunities to share best practices between us, and to avoid that everybody is reinventing the wheel again and again. But this is just one. Others are, well, efficiency gains. So there's a lot we can do in terms of efficiency. For example, considering not tiny projects, but right-sized projects, which just avoid that, again, new requirements could be introduced. So this will simplify the processes. It will save resources. and this is just another one. There's more than that, and we can all share that. And again, this is not just a very simple recipe which solves everything.
Thanks. Alberto and then Christian.
I think it's a difficult question, not just for us. It's a difficult question for all sectors, because all sectors, I would say all industries in Europe are lacking stuff. So road, transport, I think all sectors are lacking this. Let me say we have, as CR, quite an intense discussion with trade unions. In the European Social Dialogue, we are discussing for several years now how to make this possible, because there are an efficiency gain. So when you move to digital signaling, you reduce the people along the line. I think you have experience also. You have a lot of reduction of people. When you introduce digitalization like DAC, digital automatic coupling, you will change completely the kind of people that you need. So you reduce workers in areas where there is much intensive and less safe work to get a different kind of people. So we need, as railways, we have a lot of impact on trade unions. Trade unions are very important in our business, and we need, when we discuss this move, to be clear with them and find a way to move in this situation. Reduction of some people, which are more difficult to find at other positions. You need to retrain, reskill them, so you need to prepare programs for them. And this is one side. So the internal reforms and the discussion with trade unions are due. But we have also a challenge outside with the other sectors. Let me say, in this case, we need railways to be attractive. So the story we heard in Spain is true also in Italy, is true in many other countries. You need to have new services that people see as modern, and people come, and young people will be able to, I would say, join our organization. So we are in competition with all the other sectors. If we have good stories in railways, investments in new services, people coming, new clients, and so on, and you have people that are applying to join our companies. So that's the second part. So first part, internal reforms, how to be able to move people from one sector to the other and being able to reskill them, and in some cases in reduction of employment also, because if you employ DAC, you would have a reduction of employment, but a different kind. But the other point is attracting. Let me say a bit of publicity here. You mentioned the letter report. The key point the letter said to the head of state and government was, I was struck going around Europe that I could take the train only between Paris and Brussels, and the rest I had to fly. I think he mentioned the point we should connect by high speed all capitals and major cities of Europe. This is a bit the experience you did. If we do these things, I think people will come and look at us and probably will have much more attractiveness for the rest of the employment. So we need also ourselves to be more proactive and providing better services, and young people will look at us much more. We are competing anyway. It's competition for resources here.
Christian or Matic, one of you? Yeah,
No, thank you for the question, because I think it's a serious issue. First of all, it's not the European Commission taking all the experts. I can guarantee you that. We are very shortly staffed. But I mean, look, there is relatively low levels of unemployment in Europe. Oh, that's good news. We are all getting older, so aging is an issue. In the transport sector, we have shortage all over. So not just in ERTMS, digital and whatnot. We have truck drivers, train drivers, but in the transport sector as a whole. And then we have a gender issue, of course, in the transport sector that we're all aware of. But digitalization is, I would say, a positive element in all of this, because the nature of the jobs are changing. It's more about brains, so therefore more women than going out and shunting yards and changing couplers, etc. So this should help bringing in more women. Then I think the green credentials of rail is also appealing to youth, for sure. I would also say, and I'm not sort of an industrial private sector person, but we are 27 member states, right? So make use of the single market to make sure that production capacity is spread out, and you are sourcing the labor markets all over Europe. You may not find the expert in Valenciennes, but there's also, and any other sector within the European Union has done this in order not to delocalize and go to China, etc. But then, of course, we need skilled labor migration to Europe. We need it in all other sectors. We also need it in the rail supply industry. So you must actively seek skilled labor from outside the Union. And of course, we all believe that the European rail supply industry is a global leader, and therefore, of course, some of the expertise can be connected to markets outside. But the last thing I want to say here is that if we want to have young people entering this sector, including women, the best image I have in my head is visiting a vocational training center close to Vienna. Propaganda for ÖBB. I'm sorry for everybody else. Because this was a place where, you know, you would happily have your daughter enroll and train in a gender-neutral setting, excellent facilities, and you knew that if you started there would be a job waiting for you, for sure, once you are done. So it's also about industry working with vocational training centers, working with universities, and then every time I meet one of your members, I ask, are you recruiting? You know, how are you reaching out to make sure you recruit talent? And you almost always say, yes, we are, no problem. In Spain in particular, there you don't have a problem. All your suppliers, the young people are coming to the Spanish companies. That's what they say.
They pay better.
Yeah. So all of this to say that there is no sort of silver bullet, but I think we have a good case. We have a good case if we use all these various solutions to attract young people and not old men like your humble servant. Thank you.
Great, many thanks for that. I'll try and squeeze one last question in. It comes from somebody called Anonymous. But it's basically saying, we've been talking a lot about ERTMS today, of course, but ERTMS isn't the only thing which matters for interoperability or for the future of the railway. When we talk about coordinated deployment, etc., should we be thinking beyond just ERTMS and actually coordinating a lot of other issues, electrification, loading gauges, whatever at the same time? Alberto. Yeah. You were smiling. Go on.
Let me say, we ran during the European Year of Railways, we ran a train around Europe, connecting Europe Express. Let me say, at the beginning, I heard voices that this will show the problems that we have in railways. Might be true, but this showed also the railways were able to run all around Europe. So that's something that was important. We made some changes on locomotives. I want to preempt the discussion. Some changes on locomotives for marketing reasons. Just to be very clear, when we changed the locomotive between Luxembourg and Belgium, it was not because they were not interoperable, but because each one of us was paying for the train, and of course Belgian Railways wanted to have the locomotive with the Belgian logo and Luxembourg with the Luxembourg logo. So I wanted to make clear these points because so I preempt a bit of discussion, but definitely interoperability is a big issue. In terms of productivity, in particular for freight, is a very important topic, And we discussed the price of locomotives. If we are able to reduce the price of locomotives will be, I would say, important. If we are able to reduce also the cost of the service that we receive is also important. Let me say we are not starting from scratch. Sometimes, and I had experience in that train, that the only coaches that was able to run all around Europe was a coach that was developed more than 20 years ago according to the rules of railways, not of the agency. After we moved in that situation, most of the coaches were not longer interoperable. And I had to ask at least 2 CEOs.
And the best was the Swiss.
The best, yes, I had to ask 2 CEOs, but the Swiss could not run in Denmark, you know, in your country. Because it was not, I would say, agreed, authorized to run in your country. So I had to ask 2 CEOs to make special rules in order to be able that we cross the country, but all the others were able to run and we were able to. So interoperability is a key issue. Let me say, we need to follow on all these aspects because this is a key to go around and to reduce the cost. To reduce the cost and become much more efficient and productive. So I think the role of agency is very important. I was a strong supporter of the agency in the 4th railway package. I was even asking to have more power on that occasion. Then it's been cut by member states in some cases on that. But I think we count on this to be, I would say, as efficient as possible. So key question, but not easy, as you know, because you are in charge of it. And so you should know better than me what are the problems that we have over there.
Anybody else?
Just as a footnote to mention that it's this week that we will have the 10T regulation adopted. And the 10T regulation, which at the beginning was only a regulation which basically showed the lines on a map, has now become much more substantive and in reality tackles a number of the issues in terms of standards, because we are now thinking of a single European rail area, whether it is the length of trains, whether it is the loading gauge, whether it's the gauge as such, and so on and so forth. The number of new requirements where member states were able to agree will be difficult to implement. But so in that sense, it's not only ERTMS, it's a lot of other things, and we will see in future also in terms of the discussions on DAC, how we actually have to tackle sort of joint European approaches in terms of harmonization of the structures and getting rid then of problems such as licensing of vehicles for individual areas, which we also have with the EECs, which I mentioned beforehand.
Great. And I should say we did use the Connecting European Express to actually learn quite a lot of lessons. And we've changed the rules already to deal with some of these authorization points that Alberto was mentioning. So it was a very worthwhile exercise. However, I think our time is up. We've had a very rich session, I think, very wide-ranging. We certainly have consensus that some much stronger European deployment mechanism is needed. So I hope you will take that message back home to your member states as well and ensure that your ministries and your ministers in the end understand the need for that when we come and ask them to help us deliver it. We've also heard that there is consensus on the need to reduce a lot of the complexity, to find means of preventing or discouraging railways from over-specifying things which makes life difficult for the suppliers. I think we know from long experience that the devil of that one is in the detail, but there is a commitment on all sides to work on addressing it. Of course, it's great to see 500 of you in the room today, but we need to ensure that in 20 or 30 years' time there are 500 equally qualified people to replace you. So we will need to work collectively on bringing more people into the industry. There are a number of questions, a number of important questions on the Slido that we didn't get a chance to answer. Some of them I deliberately left because I think they will be covered in other sessions. So you were asking lots of questions about the authorization processes, about FRMCS, etc. But be reassured, there will be plenty of time in the rest of the next 2 days to look at those questions. But for now, it's coffee for the next 25 minutes, but before coffee, would you join me in thanking your panel?
Can you send